Good afternoon, everyone. This is Karen Reardon. I'm the president and the CEO of the Myrtle Beach Area Chamber and CVB, and we're very happy to have you with us here today. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with us as we talk about preserving rate integrity during the pandemic. And we are very, very fortunate to have two distinguished speakers helping us talk through this today. The first is Lily Mockerman. She is a rate optimization guru and an industry consultant. Lily has her own revenue management podcast that is very well respected in the lodging hotel space. And she is the owner of Total Customized Revenue Management and ThinkUp Enterprises. Lily recently had a guest appearance on the Fuel podcast, where she discussed 5 amazing revenue management tips to think about during a downturn. And we're also joined today by Loren Gray. Loren is a veteran of the industry, having worked as a hotelier, restaurateur, and hotel marketer. He also hosts the hospitality industry's most popular live show, This Week in Hospitality Marketing. He has recently been doing a lot of webinars, as we all have been, and podcasts on the topic of driving new demand, including 8 guest types who will stay at your hotel right now and how to target them. So again, we're very grateful to have both Lily and Loren here with us today. We've got a fantastic group of Myrtle Beach area accommodations leaders who have been working very hard to manage all of this craziness during the pandemic. And I know that they're going to have lots that they want to hear from you. And I'm sure there'll be a little bit of time at the end to ask a few questions of you. So with
Most
that,
definitely.
I'm going to turn that over to Lily and to Loren. Thank you again.
Fantastic. And thank you again so much for having us today. We're both really excited to be here with you. So I'll go ahead and kick things off. So you should all be able to see a little presentation that we've put together for you here in a moment. Perfect. So one of the ways that we feel like it's really important to preserve rate integrity is honestly through the way that you communicate, because there are so many things, so many factors right now that are outside of our control that make it really difficult for us to be able to sort of prioritize how we are holding rate against the competitive set. If you see them dropping rates, what do we do about that, and how do we still differentiate ourselves and compete better within that market? So it's a great topic that talks to marketing and revenue management collaborating together. So some of the challenges that we're finding across the board are listed here. Building traveler trust in the property cleanliness is a big one right now. People want to feel safe while they're traveling. Keeping travelers informed about local rules and restrictions, which seem to be ever changing. We've seen a lot of that just in recent days across many states where things are being reclosed or opened partially all across the board. Communicating those local closures or restrictions in a positive way instead of a way that makes people not want to come to your destination. Getting lost in the clutter of other messages and promotions of everybody else trying to communicate this out to everyone. And then also for those of you who are with brands, restrictions that they have on the marketing activities that you can accomplish. So obviously we're up against quite a lot right now as an industry in trying to both maintain rate, but also create demand. So we're going to try to tackle both of those subjects for you a little bit. So first of all, let's not have meetings like this one. It's really important that we all understand that no matter what, this pandemic has been here long enough that things are not just one day magically going to go back to the way that they were. So if you ever read the really popular book, Who Moved My Cheese, it illustrates that point really well. If not, it's definitely a business book everybody should read at some point in their lifetime. But it's really important that we look at how are we going to adjust the way that we've always done business with a changing environment where now we may not see groups for months or even a year. We may not see business travel for months or even a year. Certainly no conventions on the horizon right now, according to anybody that we've pulled. So it's really important that we are going in there and making those adjustments to our strategies. So first, as a good baseline, you all have probably seen some version of this, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We really have to think about what is it that our customer really needs and wants right now that maybe we have not been meeting those needs in the past. So you can see that safety is the number 2 thing here. And that's really important. And what we've been seeing if you follow the fuel travel sentiment studies, I know that you guys work closely with them often. They have some great data on the safety messages that guests want to hear from you. So it's important that you do that. But also some of these other things like love and belonging, knowledge and understanding, aesthetics and beauty. These are key ways to tap into your customers' needs in a way that makes them really want to come and stay with you because it's fulfilling a need, not just because you're a building that happens to be close to the beach. So it's important to dig further into that. Loren, did you want to add any thoughts to that one?
I mean, there's a lot to add to this, and like any good cooperative marketing person, I am letting revenue management lead the discussion until marketing can help save the day. Or as Ginger Rogers did with Fred Astaire, doing the same thing, only backwards on heels. Sorry. Okay.
Loren, ladies and gentlemen. No, but I think it's really good to sit down. In fact, we just did a brainstorming exercise like this for our company yesterday, in fact, where we really just took some time to step away from the day-to-day grind, and not enough of us are taking the time to do that. In fact, we should have done it even a little bit earlier, saying, okay, what are our customers feeling right now? What do they want or think they want, and then what do they actually need out of that so that we can sort of assuage some of these negative emotions that are out there. And it's hard because, of course, we're all experiencing them as well. So it can be difficult to kind of remove yourself from that. So taking a moment to maybe, meet outside or just clear the clutter a little bit so that you can really hone in on what's truly going on for your customer.
I will interject a little bit to that, and just one comment to this, and to be constructive in this, is that from a timeline perspective, we have a unique opportunity at this particular moment as we're on this call today, that we have a little history to ourselves. We were all shut down, and we had all this pent up demand, and we tried to interpret that demand. We tried to interpret what was going to happen next. And from a Myrtle Beach perspective, you had great successes on certain things as markets were opening up and so forth. And then we false started. And then all of a sudden there's this rebound, and we're back into this recoil of this. And a lot of people that went into it with the same methodology and strategy as they had been doing prior to the shutdown. And we really quickly realized that strategy and that methodology in its entirety as it was built is not the future forward process of discovering and redoing what this represents. We have to redefine our communication. We have to redefine our messaging. We have to redefine the channels of using those. And that is all about identifying from a progressive perspective, ours as our guests as well, guest-centrically, what it is that they first need to be feeling good about before they look at the next stage of decision to the next stage of decision. And that follows your marketing strategy as well, not just from a strategic, as Lily's pointing out, but also your method of communication follows this pattern as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for adding that, Loren.
I get past the Ginger Rogers thing.
So one of the most important things right now too, and this ties back to, not just doing things the way that you've always done, is that your comp set may have changed. So even though most hotels have agreements where they can't make changes to their star, if you can, so much the better. But your star set may no longer be an accurate representation of who you're competing with based on the changing needs of the customer during the pandemic. You also want to look at group versus transient competitors. We pretty much all know at this point that this is a leisure game that we're in right now. So if you have competitors on your star report that you really only competed with for group and not leisure, maybe it's time to reevaluate those. Are you either newly competing with them for leisure business because they're also shifting the way that they do business? Or are they really no longer relevant for you to watch from a pricing perspective and things like that? And this is really important when it comes down to rate integrity, because again, if you continue using the same comp set to determine your rates as you always have in the past, and your consumer is not looking at that set when they're making their decision about where to stay, you're going to be misaligned, and all the strategies that you put forward are likely to fall flat. So you really need to pay really close attention to, for example, even Expedia and Booking.com in their interfaces often have, what did people book instead after looking at your property, or what other properties did they look at? And while some of those are going to be outliers that you might not want to pay a lot of attention to, there is some really good data in there that will allow you to help redefine who your customer is truly looking at right now. You also want to consider, what is your ability to attract your target market? If you're looking for family business, but you're a super high-end luxury hotel with absolutely nothing for children to do, you're probably going to have a little bit of trouble. So you need to either adjust your target market, or you need to adjust the way that you're doing business to better appeal to your target market. And then also look outside your market. So as a destination, the good thing about Myrtle Beach is that you have several hotels that you probably compete with locally. But Myrtle Beach is maybe now competing with beach destinations that it wasn't previously, that are in a similar drive market from other towns. So especially as PR of the media affects us on and off, we may have a really great thing come out one day, and then another day there's an article that somebody got coronavirus at Myrtle Beach, and it sends all of our occupancies plummeting. Where are they going instead, and how do you position yourself against that market and those properties in order to recapture or newly capture those guests? Obviously, in order to go after your target market, you have to define it. So from a revenue standpoint, you want to look at what channels are booking at your hotel, and how does that compare with other hotels in your area? Are you being found on similar channels? Are you pursuing similar demographics? So here we're talking age, gender, family status, etc. Is your average revenue per guest where you want it to be? So what I mean by that is taking all the revenue that a guest spends, whether they go to your spa or they play some golf on your property or whatever, tying all of that back to each guest. Is that amount of spend where you want it to be? And if not, what target market would get you closer to that average spend? What source markets are they coming from? Right now, everything's pretty much drive market, so look in those areas. And then travel personas. So again, this goes further into, is this a single female traveler? Is it a family? Is it a couple looking for romance? All of these things are really important to consider when looking at your target market. And of course, you also want to look at this from a sales perspective, not to leave them behind. But when you're trying to gather some of that really highly coveted group business that's out there, there is group business out there, by the way. Small meetings and events are still taking place around the country, just at lower levels. So the competition is much stiffer for these. So you really have to understand, what are these customers' pain points, even beyond the obvious. Again, going back to that hierarchy of needs, and how can you meet those pain points. If there are certain types of meetings where you can't meet the pain points, set those aside and focus on the areas where you can be successful. Also, you want to look at measures of success. So what would make this group or this wholesale account or whatever successful, and can you provide that to them? Rooms to space ratio, I think right now we're happy with just about anything. But as you prepare for things to ramp back up, which eventually it will, make sure that you're not overcommitting your space for 5 rooms and putting yourself into a position where long term you're going to run into some challenges, unless you've really taken time to think through what that looks like. And then, of course, the propensity to return. You want a target market that's likely to come back to you over and over. So while, again, we'd probably take just about every group that we could convince to come to our properties right now, you would want to still be looking at these things from a target market perspective to see, can I cultivate repeat customers? Because you may need these customers to come back 3 times before business levels return to normal. So make sure that you're prioritizing your time effectively around that. And then, much like the ARG, total spend of those groups. Are these groups that are lucrative in your ancillary channels and not just in your room revenue? So at this point, I always like to throw in this little thing on customer behavior drivers, because you want to think about how your target market is behaving, but sometimes it's not the way that you think. So I know that if you want to debate them, Loren can go over attribution models with you from front to back to middle for a couple hours, anytime you'd like.
Anytime.
Anytime. But sometimes this is just really what it comes down to, is we're putting so much thought into the analytics. We're not looking at what was in front of our face, that they were simply out of what the consumer wanted and they made a random choice beyond that. So make sure that you are appropriately looking at it, not looking at it with bias or trying to assign behaviors to guests out of desperation. We're unfortunately seeing a lot of that right now, where people are forecasting or reforecasting over and over again, hoping for a different result than what they're seeing. But there are more effective ways to use your time on actually going out and finding the business. And then, of course, you also want to pre-plan for course corrections. If we have learned nothing, it's that things are going to keep changing for a while, right? It seems like every other day there's something new about a market, and you never know when your market is up next. So whatever framework and whatever plan you put in place, make sure that it's flexible enough that you can quickly adapt when the environment changes around you. And that's going to become really key, already has become really key, and will continue to be that way at least probably through Q1 of next year, that we're going to see continued changes back and forth, whether for the better or for the worse. So you want to make sure that you are differentiating yourself. So as you're thinking through this and what is your unique value proposition, really think about what sets you apart from other potential visit areas or properties within your local area. Focus on the drive markets. We can't really emphasize this enough. I had the good fortune to have an opportunity to travel through LAX just yesterday, and they are pretty dead. There was only about 30 people in the entire terminal that I was in. So you can't rely on airlift right now, although that will likely come back later. But focus on what you can access within your drive market, even if it wasn't a marketing target for you previously. Family activities are also big right now, especially with talk of school being pushed back in many markets. Parents are becoming a little bit more involved with their kids than they've ever had to be previously, trying to figure out homeschooling, maybe even throw in some sort of a homeschooling package where they can come to the beach for a week and learn about the ecosystem for science class, whatever it might be, to help give those families a little bit of break from the stress of being under one roof for such an extended period of time. And then also these weekend trips of 2 to 3 days, this is where you can really get the most bang for your buck right now. I know that you have all pretty much been seeing that weekend demand come through to your market. Make sure that you're capturing that. And even if you do have to reduce your rates to some extent on the weekdays, make sure to leave opportunity here to really drive rate. If you have excess demand, consider a length of stay restriction, but we need to capture every drop, even more so now than we ever have in the past. So make sure that you're taking full advantage of your weekend demand for those 2 to 3 day trips. And then finally, from my standpoint, don't automatically drop your rate. Make sure you test the waters with a value-added promotion, see if that will work. Maintain your positioning within your comp set. Don't suddenly become the lowest or the highest rate in the market unless you were previously holding that position. And ideally, use bar as your reference point. You don't necessarily want to drop your bar. Introduce a limited time offer that will allow you to kind of put out value, but bar is the reference point that your customers measure you by and that they measure value by. So if you just drop your bar, they don't perceive value as strongly as they would with an offer. Make sure you're promoting those cleanliness and safety measures to meet that basic need. Make sure that you're flexible enough to shift for a new reality. Prepare for the possibility, which at this point is becoming reality in many markets, an initial spike that will taper off. When school does resume in session, we may see a drop in leisure, so we need to be prepared for that and have action plans around it. Build on your relationships via sales and meaningful marketing, which I know Loren's going into here in a moment. And of course, from a technical aspect, make sure to audit your systems and make sure that everything is talking properly and that you're wide open on all the channels that you can be for visibility where it makes sense for you. All right, so Loren, I am going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Okay, leave it here for just a second. I'd love the flags here. First off, you are a perfect presenter, Lily, because not a single question came up. You covered everything anybody could possibly imagine to talk about, which is amazing. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Please know that everyone, this is an open dialogue, both in the context of our conversation at the very end when we allow for time for this. We are shifting gears now, or as your Charlotte fans might say, we've run the track. Now we're going to get up to speed. We're going to run a little faster with this, and it's going to be a little bit of a fire hose. I have a lot of things going on with this. There's 38 of us on the call, so welcome to the Hunger Games. We're all frenemies until we're not. And at this point, we're not. Our further conversation forward is exactly how to extract, take, steal, borrow, beg, and move business into your door, because that's what makes payroll. Everything that Lily has covered is great. It is accurate. It is everything that you need to do. But we're going to slice it and dice it into a little bit more detail of how you can do better than somebody else. And in terms of if all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, you got to start building your toolkit to have a lot more diversity than just single action to what we're talking about. You need to be adaptive. There is no new normal. Every day has its normal, and every day is different. So if you're not adapting and changing to what you need to do to grab business, you're going to find yourself behind a competitor who did. So with that, next slide, we're going to go start throwing through this. Okay, so starting from square one. First off, at the end of this, I'm going to go and fire hose you a deck of links of tools of everything I'm talking about. There's, I don't know how many, gosh, there's 13 slides or 12 slides, and there's 5 or 6 on each one. Just a boatload of actionable stuff based on categories of conversation we're about to have. So you'll have a lot of things to go to and mess with later as to whether they're going to be helpful or not helpful with you. I will speak in context of brand versus non-branded, independent versus large versus small, location downtown versus outliers. This is inclusive of all those kind of things. First, with all of this is we are now at a very incredible, unique position. This is opportunity at our door, not pessimistically, oh gosh, woe is us. Yes, it is not a favorite market. It's a hunter's market, but we have to go back to guest-centric communication. It's not about us anymore. It's not about rate and date, as Lily had very eloquently put together. It's about who are we talking to and how can we communicate with them, but they need to understand to want to do business with us for whatever their purpose in travel is. Now, she refers to a terminology here, which I love, which is in group favoritism, similar to oneself. And you can read the slide, I don't have to read it for you, but basically what you're looking to do is identifying the people that you communicate with. You're looking for the people, as simple as it may sound, talking to your team, if you're still open, which most of you are, as to who's walking in your door. Where are they coming from? Where are they going to? Why are they traveling with you? Why are they staying with you? The simple, cordial dialogue that goes along with, regardless of whether there's a plexiglass screen in front of you, as to, hi, it's a pleasure, a genuine pleasure to have you with us. Why are you here? Where'd you come from? Where are you going? Are you staying? What you staying for? What's your family says? What are they traveling? And making these notes, it's like a captain's log. Start date 20 such and such and such. Went through such and such. 5 families with 2 kids, 7 to 10 years old showed up. Because why? Because we have the tools now that we've never had before on being able to target these people. If you've never done Facebook advertising, if you've never done Google advertising and the targeting you can create, in Facebook, I can target a family from a geographic location with a demographic profile of income, with an age categorization and child ages and education level and business acumen, and literally have an audience to talk to, if I know those are the people that are going to come into my hotel. So next slide. Put your customers to work. Who's best to tell you what you need to talk about than the guests that want you? I mean, I don't mean to say duh, but hey, ask. There's tons of ways, and we'll show you tools about this, that you can ask people, not just because they're at your front desk, but through the engagement process of them discovering you. You can poll them, survey them, quiz them, have a contest for them, a giveaway for them. Hey, I'll give you this if you just tell me what it is you're looking at me for. Ways of discovering what they're wanting to do with you. Okay, and why they're interested in possibly staying with you is a key element to what you're about to do next. We have the ability to define this information and tailor that into a strategy of identifying the combination between what Lily and I do. Lily tells me where I need to go. and I get us there. She's the navigator of the ship. I need to be here at this time, make this much money. And I'm like, okay. And I got to figure out how to get through the storm, the rocks, the icebergs, whatever it is. I got to get us there. I'm the facilitator to the process. And this is a facilitation of what I need to know of the landscape that I'm traveling through to get to where she wants me to be. So reviewing with our guests what they want, how they want it, why they're interested, what they're looking for, and how to communicate that are key questions that we have to ask ourselves to create the strategy forward. It's not a marketing plan that's sat on the shelf that you built last year for this year. That's on the shelf. I'm not saying all of it's bad, but it's on the shelf because it didn't work, as I just pointed out earlier. Okay, next one. Highlight flaws. First up, you need to see what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you're capable of doing, what you're not capable of doing. Some things may be as fundamental as this. Do you enforce with your guests the same criteria you enforce with your staff? Because as a guest that's concerned about travel, I may love the fact that your staff wears masks and wipes things down and is behind plexiglass and everything else. But if you're letting everybody and their brother walk through and don't give a bejeebers that they're not wearing a mask and they're, whatever they're doing, I'm not comfortable. It's not just your team that has to do it. Do you enforce with your guests saying, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, you're not able to stay with us because you're not willing to wear your mask in public places? We can't have you do that. That is a standard of our hotel. Are you enforcing that, or are you just taking one come all? These are fundamental things that have to be communicated with your guests as they begin to explore the relationship with you. Be candid about the fact of what you can't do. Yeah, my pool is closed. Why? Because municipality-wise, I can't open it. Please don't hide that. Don't let me find that out when I'm at your front desk where I had planned on enjoying the pool and to find out I can't, or that you didn't tell me the beach got closed, or that there's absolutely no restaurant in the area that I can actually go to and eat. What did I came here with the expectation of what you said on your website was what was happening when in fact you didn't give me the full details. So making sure that the accuracy of your information, the truth and transparency of that information is absolutely critical. Okay. Connect with all types of emotions. Everybody's on the board. One thing we have realized is that nobody has the same reason for travel that the next person has. You have what you had, which was the early adopters of, I don't care, this is a hoax or whatever that first layer of people were that went out to travel, they did. But that's a finite audience. There's a large audience behind it of people that are saying at the next level of safety, I'm willing to travel. And the people behind them at the next level of safety past that, I'm willing to travel. Or they might find that there's unfortunately still mitigating reasons why, regardless of their safety concerns, they have to travel. Unfortunately, there are the passings of people, and there are funerals, and there are weddings that are done differently, and we know that. There's convalescent support for people that to visit them finally or not to visit them. Families that haven't been able to visit that need to be visited. There's still purpose to travel beyond the I just got to get out of the house mentality focus. And those people can be targeted. And they can be identified, and you can create messaging that is relevant to their concerns to make them feel better about the decision process to include you in them. Okay. And again, I don't want to read slides that have great contents to it. And Lily did a great job of detailing some of this emotional aspects to this that you have to consider when you're dialoguing with these people, both from a first person as well as a content point of view. Okay. Next slide. This goes back to where we are right now. And we don't know when this is going to change much for us. Nobody, I don't care who you are, knows what the heck's going on next week. I mean, they already have locusts in Africa. I'm just expecting a little hailstorm here eventually. We're kind of covering the 7 biblicals at this point. So we don't know what to plan for this. We didn't know what to plan when it came to protests. And so we didn't know what to plan when we had COVID first breakout and then the second wave breakout and the recoil from that. We don't know people's reaction to how they're reacting to this. So every day has its normal. The consistency of this is the transparency, the honesty, and the guest-centric communication that we have, and the ability to market to them. And I keep referring to this as tools. We're going to get to them. We're almost, go ahead with the next one. As Lily pointed out, and I made the first comment on, there is a progression of acceptance. There is, I have to be safe about this or thoughtful about this before the next thing can be considered. Obviously, people that have financial destitution, they're not capable of acting on their desires. Those that don't have family capabilities to travel because of restrictions of what their families can do, medical or not, have not the capability to do that. We have certain things that we have to create a standard for before the consideration to the next level is there. Knowing what those influencing aspects are in the process of our communication and content is critical to our marketing strategy. What we're in right now, I've been through 9/11, I've been through 08, I've been through 95. All of that stuff is cumulatively similar, but dissimilar and not the same as this. And as an industry impact, I can't think of anything more impactful to the destruction of our industry than what we're going through right now. I see we've changed from the second wave of recoil where people were talking about reopening, pre-opening, resurgence, redevelopment, reemergence, blah, 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 to we're permanently closed, we're not coming back, we're gone. We're getting an obituary list of business now because people can't restart a third time, or they don't know how to start a third time, or they're just out of the business for good. We've seen professionals in our industry that are great people in our industry that have decided that this isn't the industry they're going to stay in anymore. It's been a profound impact on what we do as an industry. So knowing what people need in the process of the decision process has turned into a new norm, if you want to keep using that term, for us moving forward. Okay, next one. Critical, and we'll go a little bit in detail of the actual mechanics, logistics of this, but you have these visual. One thing we have now that we never had before is this social monster. It can be used for us or against us. And you have brands that go and say, this is what we're doing at all of our brands. And then you have somebody with a phone camera going, they're not wearing masks. They're not wiping stuff down. There's no sticker on my door. They're literally the vigilantes of verification at this point. So if you're going to say you're doing these things, then you have to prove it by what you communicate, validate, and show by the people that show up and the people that are deciding to show up. You have to create this content for them to see you do this, not just say you're doing this. So it's a very key element to that process. This is a whole mouthful on this one. What you're looking at is the method of communication is based on the channel of use. And this is pure marketing. This is not a revenue conversation. The channels the revenue is referring to versus the channels I'm referring to, they're same in context, difference in use. When I talk about Facebook versus LinkedIn, or Twitter versus Instagram, or your website versus CRM email distributions, the method of messaging and the context of the content are all different because you're at a different point of dialogue with whoever it is you're engaging with at that point. Just like a progressive discussion with somebody, every time you see that person, you don't go back to the first conversation you had. You continue the conversation where you last left it to what you want to talk about next. So from initial exposure to what you are, what you're doing, and how you're doing it, your next communication based on that channel is about how that's being confirmed, how that's being appreciated, what's that's doing for impact, what other information do I need about location information or whatever. It's a progressive conversation that you need to have in your dialogue with the people as you progressively go through affirming with them their process of decision with you if they haven't already made it. This goes to group as well, which we can talk about if we have time afterwards. I don't want to dive into too many rabbit holes with this. So next one after this.
And I did want to just add here, one of the things that we highlight here is about video communication. Video has become an incredibly important medium right now because pictures don't always tell the full truth. And so people are looking for those live, on the spot, video type communications to make sure that you are holding up your end of the bargain. So it just goes again to demonstrating before your guest is there, while they're making their decision about where to stay, the authenticity of your communications regarding cleanliness and safety.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I know that Lily answered the question at the other end to it. I got to do a slide share. Jeez, I forgot. Hold on.
No, you're fine.
All right. I got to do share screen.
So while Loren is doing that, I just wanted to point out we have all of our contact info here. From my standpoint, we are doing a research study at ThinkUp Enterprises, one of my companies, and you can reach us at info@thinkupenterprises.com if you want to participate. It's just 3 quick questions, totally free to participate. Not trying to pitch anything, just putting together some resources for the hospitality industry, which of course you'll receive a copy of if you choose to participate. So
we'll go back to that screen. I'm sorry, I jumped us off that before I had the chance to do that. My part. Now, are you seeing my little heartbeaty thing? Okay, cool. Okay, so this is the fire hose. I apologize for going fast with this. And Lil, if you can keep track of any cues that come from this. This is just a short dialogue through this. This is basically following a pattern. Lily has an amazing podcast. I can tell you that for a fact. I also throw out a podcast other than the live show, which I literally garnered these tools. This is a progressive conversation I've had in the podcast for the past 10 or so. So I'm going to go through in the context of their usability very quickly what these tools are for. You can use them and look at them at will. Not all of them are free. Most of them, after you get interested in using them, they want to charge you to really expand the usage with them, but we'll go through them very quickly. Okay, first off, and this is just a progression of going back to the Hunger Games mentality. You need to know what your competitors are doing. And it isn't the competitor across your street or across in the area market. You're competing with symbiotic markets, markets of same demographic interest. Okay, example being with hotels I have in Key West, they're competing with the bejeebers out of Aspen, Colorado. Why? Because the same demographics are deciding whether they want to do a mountain escape or beach escape. And I'm competing for those demographics. These are tools that help you define and understand down to what they're spending, what their ads are doing, how successful their ads are doing, what their successful social engagements are doing, who's doing what on social, what their weaknesses are based on what your strengths may be. It does all those things. Okay, these are some cool tools for that. This one, these are ways of interacting with your guests that are beyond the asking a direct question. These are contests and quizzes, and hey, I'll give you a $10 off or a percentage off of, you answer a few questions for me, like, why are you thinking about traveling in the next 30 days? What would you think about traveling? And to Recite Fuel Travel, that you all work with, or most of you work with, or have the resources to work with, who's in market with you, they do that amazing sentiment study, which we're going to review in the live show again tomorrow. There's series 7 of this that talks about understanding what the guest interests are. But that goes in line with our conversation here. There's ways to engage with your guests that aren't just fill out a 15-page survey. Nobody likes those things. Even though people have more time to read, listen to, and watch, you also don't want to bore them to death. So you want to make it fun and interesting with quizzes or contests or things that they can find a short-term engagement that maybe you can go back and ask another question. These are tools you use to communicate with your guests. These all do different things, like Interactor app. That's a video one that you can literally have that does a video and puts hotspots on it so that you can do what I use it for, which is, what do you want to know about? Local places, off the beaten path, places, whatever. And they hit the links and it goes to the next video based on what they hit. Social Bee gives you ideas that it's National Margarita Day, and if you want to put that in social. If so, we'll put you things in your website, if you have control over your website, non-branded, that you can actually put content based on the geographic location that they're looking at your website from. So you can talk about if they're coming from Cincinnati or any other place by referring to the distance travel necessary to get to you, or things that they might be interested in you and that they know demographically that they're interested by traveling from. On and on, SurveyMonkey, Typeform, these are all survey type-esque things that can be done. These are things to determine overall view of trends. A lot of these are free, like Trends Google. If you haven't used the tool, crazy insights. Tons of rabbit holes to chase down. Facebook Insights, if you don't have a business manager account, you should make one. It's free. Facebook would love for you to do that if you don't have it. And using Facebook Insights, you literally can define and refine the demographics that are not just engaging with you, but are engaging with your market based on geography, demography, personas, crazy insights that those things can give you. And these are other tools that do the same kind of aspect, plus also developing what words you need to create ad campaigns around, or terms you need to include your social content with. Crazy tools for that. Rich media, these are great, easy ways, WYSIWYG UI stuff that, you talk about, geez, I love that video, but I don't know how to do it. These are cool, really cool, easy thing. Design Bold, you literally just type something in and it'll make a video for you. By determining what you typed about, it'll put the images in that you want and everything else. So it does some cool stuff with that. Filmora is a great video editing. If you're a little bit more of like, okay, I have this video piece, but I want to put a intro to it and lower thirds and maybe some other audio or something. It's a great, very easy, very affordable. Like I think it's $60 that you put on, and boom, now all of a sudden you can start doing your own video stuff. Okay. This goes to a lot of conversations with, I know we're limited to domestic travel and derived travel at that, but we also have a Babylonian Tower of Babel amount of languages in our country. And I have found from anything as simple as Smurf business, wedding business in Florida, some people like to discover in their own language, but then translate that into English when it comes to doing the business transaction. They know that not every hotel fluently speaks every language, including theirs. But this helps you in an edge compared to your competitors, that if you're showing up in Spanish search or in German search or in French search and your competitors aren't, and then they come and find you, and then of course that's slowly translated into English afterwards, you're already in markets your competitors aren't. Remember the Hunger Game mentality. It's up about making your payroll. Your competitor bookings don't make you make payroll. So these are ways to create the translations that help you get indexed in alternate languages. These are ways to determine what your competitors are doing socially, what's successful for them, and also for you to discover how you can do what you're doing better, and how to broadcast that. And it also, like for instance, Social HP, if you want your team to contribute, but you don't want it to automatically go up to your social accounts, it goes into a hopper that through authentication, you would approve whether you put it on, and so what time, if it's scheduled or whatnot. The benefit of that is that for your team, they may catch a beautiful sunset. Just happy your front desk agent walks out the front door and boom, wow, what a, and they take a picture. You weren't there. And of course, you don't want to get stock photography. Now you have this cool picture and they post it up and you are the authenticator going, that's really cool. Don't want to post it now, but I think maybe next week, next Friday, we use it. That's what these kind of platforms do for you. Offline tracking tools. We all know that business just doesn't happen on our tracking. As Lily pointed out, not everything goes through what the processes that we think. With this, these are ways like Phone Wagon. You can do dynamic phone numbers. They can create different tracking possibilities. The Offline Business Manager for Facebook, same mentality, does offline tracking. This is bots. This has been very successful in people's engagement with our social platforms where we don't have somebody able to respond at 3 o'clock in the morning always, but a lot of people have baseline questions. You create logic strings with these that answer questions, never acting like a human. There's 3 rules of robots, just like Isaac Asimov said. One of them is don't act like a human, never get in the way of a human. And this allows you to allow them to find out a lot of their information tailored to what brought them to your website. You can tailor these to the very pages that we're on. This is something I will always stand on a soapbox for, special needs travelers. With everything that's going on, there's a heightened awareness of concerns, detailed concerns of people travel requirements. And this is paramount. This happy scribe, think of the special needs traveler that visually is impaired or audibly impaired. Having simple transcripts at the bottom of what you're doing for videos is a game changer. Regardless that you can put them in other languages, which I showed you tools to do that already, but just the fact that visually that would get read, visually impaired, that would get read to them so they would understand what the video is doing. Audibly impaired, they would be able to read what is being presented to them, should they not be able to go over and hear it. Those are just 2 aspects of being able to transcribe what you're doing so that you use Facebook and YouTube and they do transcriptions, but if you ever looked at the transcriptions, you're like, nah, that's not what I said, because they try their best at it. Here, you're actually able to do it, correct it so that it is accurate to what's being said when they're looking at it. Okay. Getting found on tools. This is citation work. If you don't know what citations are, definitely learn this. This is what's called NAP information, name, address, phone number. This is the accuracy of your information. Google My Business has turned into a profound tool of importance. If you're not up to date with your hours of operation, your protocols, your COVID-19 information, the changes in your policies, the changes in what is available, that's the place, one of the many places that you need to put that in addition to these other tools that can be used for citation work. Again, this is the last of these, and that is the way to communicate has changed. As Lily pointed out, videography, very important. Also keep in mind, our level of acceptance of what video has dramatically shifted since this process for the pandemic has begun. We're used to nighttime shows being done on cell phones in somebody's living room, for goodness sakes. So having the glitzy, model-based, how beautiful the world is, contrived videos out the window. What you can do is live streaming. What you can do is, this is what we're doing. One of the strongest things that Linda pointed out earlier was walk your people through the protocol of what it's like to walk into your hotel and show them with a video. Like, I'm walking up to the front desk. This is our new front desk. Here's the sanitation. Here's the gloves. Here's the mask. Here's the plexiglass. This is the no-touch purchase and placement. Show them what you're doing in the room. Show them what you're doing in common area. How do I get my breakfast in the morning? This is where I get it. This is how show them the protocol changes by literally walking them through it. Answering those questions in a video, in a visual way, very powerful to do. And these are some tools that allow you to do that and also broadcast live at that point. And that's it. That's all my fire hose of happiness.
So for those who haven't already had a chance to grab it, here is all of the contact info for us as well. I'm also dropping into the chat really quickly just some information on how to book with us if you wanted to participate in the research project that we're doing. as well as a link to the podcast that Karen mentioned earlier that I did with Fuel. I am very proud of the fact that this was recorded many weeks ago and all of the points still hold true, which is difficult to do these days. So for anybody who wants to listen in on that, that is there for you as well. And then, of course, on the ThinkUp Enterprises podcast, we have several different topics. We talk about sales, marketing, and revenue convergence, how to upsell, which is a great follow-up to this session that we're having here on how to drive more rate within your property, how to upsell in the midst of the pandemic, how to implement a commercial director position instead of sales, marketing, and revenue separately, all sorts of good, juicy stuff in there. So definitely highly recommend that you check out some of these resources. And also, of course, we would love to have you join us on the live show. Loren, do you want to tell them a little bit about that?
Sure. We do it every Friday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. You can find, we simulcast on everything. As mentioned before, a little over 25,000 people a week that join us in 32 countries. We've been doing it for almost, over 6 years now, every week. And we have Lily and myself are both co-hosts on it, as well as a motley crew of others. We take on the weekly topics and tools and things like this, a lot about what we just talked about, really. On a weekly basis. We have open discussion about them. We allow anyone to come join us and have that discussion either via chat or join us. If there's an empty chair or a talking head, you can join us for that. And that's at hospitalitydigitalmarketing.com/live. Or if you want a shorter one, bit.ly/HDM live. And I think our show tomorrow is number 258. Yeah, 258 is tomorrow. And we'll be broadcasting live again as well for that. I do want to bring up a bit of a challenge since we had a quiet chat, other than one question. And I'll put this as a gauntlet to be thrown to the 35 participants that are with us right now without divulging confidential information. Try to stump us. We got a few minutes. See if you can knock us off the damn hill, Lily and I. Give us something that you have a problem, a nut that needs to crack. Whether it's a revenue question, whether it's a marketing question, but you have us and we'll be as candid and honest as we can about any answer that we can provide for you. Again, we're not asking you to display rate or anything like that. But if you have a particular nut, you're reopening, you're staggering on your opening, you have no market presence, you lost market presence, you have new comps into your market that you weren't aware of. People are stealing your rates, people are stealing your margin, you've lost your RevPAR. I can't imagine all of you sitting on happy numbers right now. So there's got to be problems out there that, we have a few minutes we can throw at that, we can maybe point you in the right direction, give you a tool that might be more useful. We're very much about, there's nothing to hide from this. We're not trying to pitch anything other than give you a solution to this. So somebody's got to be out there with something. We can't have solved the world's problems in 40 minutes because we're not that good. No matter how fast I talk.
For anybody who didn't already see it, Karen did have one great question, which was, are we seeing success in other destinations with 3 or 4 night minimums? So from my perspective, we're seeing this more in the upper upscale and luxury kind of destination properties, which your market does lend itself to, although you maybe have a little bit more competition than some of the other hotels that we've surveyed in this area. But whenever you're catering to affluent travelers, they're really desperate for escape and they have the means to do so. They're not suffering quite so much like the working classes. And there's plenty of people. In fact, I was just talking with a luxury resort, a 5-diamond luxury resort in Mexico today as part of our research project. And they said that they have people, CEOs coming and booking for a month with them, with their families, just so that they can work from there instead of at home, so that they have a change of pace. So those types of travelers are out there if you have the means to get in and grab them.
We have Tracy asking, Myrtle Beach as a whole is fighting PR issues with misinformation about COVID-19 spread. What can hoteliers do to help fight this? Okay. Lily, I'll give you out of deference if you'd like to do this first, but I have an answer already.
You go ahead. You're the marketing guy.
First off, I would say, unless you are Myrtle Beach, I wouldn't worry about it. What you need to worry about is your particular property at this particular moment being included, how people are perceiving your market as Myrtle Beach. We know Myrtle Beach is a small town in the midst of a large market. And to be referring to Myrtle Beach in the context of Myrtle Beach creating the problem is a misnomer. We all know that. We all know that they're tagging the term that Myrtle Beach has an issue with this, when in fact it wasn't Myrtle Beach. It was the people that allowed 100 people to congregate and do the wrong thing in a parking lot perhaps, or whatever. The thing that you need to do from a PR perspective is not PR as it is marketing communication messaging. We talked a little bit about communicating to those guests that are looking to come into your market, that are interested in you by their engagement to your website, by engagement to your social, that you're very crystal clear on what exactly you are doing. That videography that we talked about, showing the change in protocol with your hotel, the decision whether you have or haven't made that you're enforcing that with your guests needs to be discussed openly, transparently to the people on the channels that you have availability to. You need to talk about the things that people need to understand are relevant to your hotel, like as in, and I've had this with clients where we talk about a constant running list of what restaurants are open, what their types of service are, what the days of service they have. Do they do delivery and pickup only? Do they have internal dining or not? Do they have what capacity to it? How do you communicate with them? How do you connect with them? This is information you can give. As a matter of fact, from an opportunistic point of view, you can dominate the Google answer box by more and more content if you have control of your website. If you're not branded and you have that limitation, but if you have control of your website, adding content to your website specific to those restaurants as to what they're doing and how they're doing it and their proximity and value proposition to you, then you become the authority as to people's questions about that restaurant. I already have that happen in a market in Vancouver. We're the authority in over 12 restaurants around our hotel, not the restaurants. We are. In the answer box, Google answers from our website the information that people are asking about in the Google answer box. And then you're front and center on Google search results when it comes to that. The other is that if you can collaborate with them, this is an amazing chance to become a community advocate. Reach out to those restaurants that you know are struggling and say, look, I have an audience. How can I bring them to you? What can you let me know that I can tell them? Is it buy one, get one, 10% off? Just the fact that you're open? Tell me what I can tell my guests. And I will tell them so that when they want to think about staying with me, they know you're there. That's the opportunity you have of changing the dialogue of, oh, Myrtle Beach is this. It's just, whatever the PR negativity twist is. Rather than fighting that beast, redefine the message, change the dialogue, and talk about you and what you're doing. It's just you. So, and Lily, I'm sorry.
No, I think that's a great answer. So I'm going to jump ahead to the next one from the chat box from Miss Kitty Grossman. When forecasting 2021 room nights, revenue, and ADR, what information are you finding most helpful? And is there any 2021 trend data in Myrtle Beach area that you're aware of? So in doing my research, I've stumbled across a new term that I cannot take credit for, but it's called foreguessing. And that is essentially, unfortunately, where a lot of us are right now, because there's really not great data. We have a lot of kind of pundits guessing about what's going to happen in 2021, but unfortunately the best answer that I can give you is that there's no strong data predicting 2021 market by market right now. Even the big forecasts like the CBRE forecast or the STR forecast have wide swings and margins of error right now. So until we actually have a vaccine that is being distributed successfully, I don't think we're going to see any normalization of numbers. However, from an anecdotal point, the slightly over 200 hoteliers now that I've spoken with personally, as a whole, seem to agree that other than small meetings and events, they're not expecting really any major group through the end of this year, and only a limited increase in Q1. Q2 seems to be the time where people think that there's going to be more of those mid-sized groups being booked, and conventions not until 2022. Also seems to be a common theme that people are expecting to keep their business rates flat for now, or even more importantly, floating them with bar to give their customers sort of that risk-averse satisfaction that their rate will always be lower than the publicly available rate. So that's something that's really coming to prevalence more right now. But again, we're expecting maybe a trickle, maybe just 10 or 15% of the normal business travel in late Q3, Q4 this year, maybe up to about 25% of normal in Q1, and slowly graduating from there. So in the absence of this information, what becomes really important is conducting a break-even analysis. So how much revenue do you need to make to cover your fixed expenses and the variable expenses that go with that specific revenue? And once you've hit that, what we like to call zero-based budgeting, then create a flow-through plan for every additional dollar above and beyond that. And from a forecasting standpoint, we're focused really heavily right now in operational forecasts, that 14-day window allows us the best opportunity to be successful in the actual validity of the forecast, since things are changing rapidly. So the ability to forecast accurately for a 90-day window is something that we're kind of expecting to slowly come back to us over the next quarter. So not the answer you probably were hoping for, Katie, but I hope it's helpful to you. That's really the way that we're tackling it with most of our clients, and even internally with our business. We don't have seasonality of our own. So we follow this model pretty regularly, where we do kind of the covering fixed expenses, and then for additional revenue, what costs are associated to that, what's left, and how do we want to distribute that money. So
I'll add it from a marketing perspective on something, and this is very guerrilla self-preservationist marketing, and it's time consuming, but it's worth the effort to this, is that you have the ability to research geographically where people are looking to you from. And you can do that over a period of time, and you can do that out of demographics that you think walk in your door. You can do that on Facebook, you can do that on Google. You can see that people in Cincinnati at a certain time of year are looking to come to you. You know, historically, looking at historical data, the geography of people that have attended to you before. There's two marketing elements to this that you can use. One is that you know there's certain highlighted things that next year have a probability, if not just a possibility, of actually being functions, events, and so forth. You know they're high item items. Back in the day, we used to go over and say in an email, hey, don't forget, we just opened up inventory for Super Bowl. So if you want to book before it sells out, book it now because we have Super Bowl next year. You're doing the same mentality only now in current circumstances. You know of certain events, you know of certain cycles, you know certain things that are happening in market. Offer them with the benefit of right now saying, book now, buy now, pay now, refundable whenever. It's money in your pocket now, but buy it now and book this year's rate for next year before you ever change anything. Where you're going to get the best, and we're going to best rate guarantee that should we ever drop it, you're going to get the benefit of that change as well. Get the money on the books now for what, as Liv strongly points out, we have such a short window of viewable of what we're doing right now. We have to survive now. So we need cash flow now if we're going to continue running business now. So the more you can convince people of the benefit of doing future tense bookings based on what they'd be interested in traveling is a marketing arm, and then knowing where to market that so you're not squandering dollars in broadcast, I'm broadcasting, we're doing this. No, you're going to the market that is interested in what you're saying, about what you're saying it for, at the rate that they're interested in purchasing it for. So it's a very, very surgical marketing process in a future tense way. What? No more questions? No more earth-shattering how to save the world and give 2 examples? What?
However, I think you guys did a really nice job of throwing us some tough ones. Those are definitely 2 of the tougher questions to answer right now. So thanks for jumping in, Tracy and Katie. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Karen again. I just want to add for the benefit of everyone on this that the DMO has partnered with Tourism Economics, so Adam Sachs's company, through U.S. Travel, and we don't have it yet, but we have retained them to do a forecast for the DMO. So it won't be specific to forecasting room nights, revenue, and ADR per se, but it will be a forecast based on the Myrtle Beach area, the Grand Strand. And again, as soon as the DMO has that, we'll obviously be sharing it with a board of directors, but we'll be sharing it with all of you as our CVB partners. So we hope to be able to have that in about a month's time so that we can look at the back half of 2020 and we can look at the forecast for 2021. So I just wanted to note that that's another tool in the toolkit that we hope to be able to share with you that might add some insight.
Awesome.
Absolutely. And Karen and Caroline, I assume that this recording will be sent out to the attendees along with the deck, correct?
That is correct. And again, we cannot thank both of you enough. Thank you to Loren. Thank you to Lily. And thank you to all of our guests who took the time today to listen. I found it very insightful. I noted a number of things that I learned from both of you. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate everyone's time. And I know another thing that we at the CVB are getting asked about a lot that relates to our workforce that I just wanted to note is the whole issue of testing, right? So we have been labeled a coronavirus hotspot. It's been very damaging. It's been very detrimental these last couple of weeks. I want you to know that your CVB is working very hard on the public relations and social media side to try to get the accurate information out there. But the other thing that we are in support of is more mass testing, because we know if more people can be tested, then we have a better understanding of who has been exposed. We can get those people quarantined and we can stop the spread. So our numbers will go down and we won't have those horrible national stories that we have been plagued with. And so I know many of you have asked for your own workforce or for neighbors and friends, how do we go about getting the test? And our health systems are really rising to that occasion. So I just want to remind everyone, tomorrow at Pelican Stadium, there will be free COVID-19 testing from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's completely safe. You're in your car the whole time. And we're assured that the wait is not long, like those stories that we saw of Arizona and other states where people were waiting in line all long. All right. So they're saying an hour or less to get the test and about 3 days to get the test results back, which is excellent. This is all part of DHEC and what the CARES Act has been able to provide. And so we just want that information to be out there for you and for you to push that down through your organization. So if you know of people that are concerned or are showing symptoms and have not been able to get a test, that this is available, and we're going to have this available tomorrow. The following Friday will be at Coastal Carolina University, and then the Friday after that back at Pelican. So in the matter of the next 3 Fridays, rounding out this month, we should have, again, close to 10,000 people potentially having the ability to be tested for free in the Myrtle Beach area. And I think that's really important. So I just wanted to add that on. That doesn't have a lot to do with revenue management or marketing, but
it all ties together.
Yeah.
And also it's all about trying to slay this dragon right now.
Right.
So again, my thanks to Lily and Loren and for everyone for being on this today. And we will push out these great slides and all of this information very quickly to you so that you can access these tools. And we continue to wish you well as we all labor mightily through this pandemic and do our very best to stay safe and to be successful in our marketing and revenue management endeavors. So thank you again, and I hope everyone stays well.
And if you haven't done it already, make sure to send a thank you to these awesome ladies over here and the rest of the staff at Visit Myrtle Beach, because you guys are very blessed to have such an engaged, forward-thinking CVB at your disposal. And I hear all the time how hard they're working for you and how much they're investing in your success. So thank you, ladies, for being such a great support for our listeners as well.
Thank you. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Take care.
Take care.